Airports are usually crowded with travelers just like you and me, but sometimes terrifying true encounters with horrifying consequences make us think twice about going to an airport ever again. It was the second year of COVID-19, and my sister and I were flying from Raleigh-Durham to Bangor, Maine for vacation with my dad. My sister was 18 and I was 14. As it was COVID-19, the airport was empty with only a few workers and passengers. But one woman totally creeped me out. It was late evening when my sister and I settled into the waiting area at our gate. No other passengers were there except this old woman. Her face was as white as death. She was so deadly pale I thought she was deceased. But then she blinked the most bloodshot eyes I have ever seen. She wore a black hat with disheveled, patchy, dirty white hair. Round her dried apple neck hung an amulet that was made of some kind of bone. She looked like she was a wicked witch from a haunted movie or some character at a haunted house on Halloween. I was scared just to look at her in the bright lights of the airport. If it had been dark, I would have screamed in terror. She fumbled with a rosary in her hands, counting each bead round and round without any prayers, more like a voodoo talisman. Her gaze was fixed onto me. I tried not to look at her, but our eyes locked unintentionally. She held me, unable to move. She murmured words indistinct or foreign I could not understand, till she released me from her evil grip. I tried to ignore the witch lady by looking away. I felt sick. I told Izzy I had to go to the toilet. She said, "Hurry, our gate should open for boarding soon," and continued with her book. I entered the men's toilet and it was completely empty. I entered a middle stall, locked the door, and began to retch. But before I could blow out my stomach, I heard a woman's voice in the stall beside mine, speaking in an undertone. I could not distinguish the words. That was frighteningly weird, especially because I was in a men's room. I put my ear to the stall wall and silently listened. "The eyes of Damballa are on you. Do not fly on this day." My heart was racing uncontrollably. I felt a fever come over me, and I was on fire, sweating profusely. My head was spinning. I threw up and flushed the toilet. I was delirious with panic and this burning fever. I returned to Izzy, who looked at me and said, "Beck, you've got COVID. We can't fly to Maine." We called Mom, and she returned to the airport and took us home. But what makes this a chilling nightmare is when I opened my carry-on in my bedroom, there was the rosary the old witch had fingered at the airport gate. How it got into my carry-on, I'll never know. Her face is etched into my mind every time I enter an airport. When I was 16, I was in the ski club at school. We skied mostly in Ohio every weekend. We traveled to Boyne Mountain, Michigan, and Seven Springs, Pennsylvania. Still, the most fantastic ski trip was to Aspen, Colorado. It was fabulous until the Denver airport. On the day of our departure, the Aspen airport was snowed under, and all flights were canceled. We had to take a bus to Denver airport for our connecting flight home. The road was also clogged with snow and ice, so the going took a lot of work. We missed our connecting flight in Denver. But here's where it turns ugly. The next flight had only 10 seats, and there were 12 of us in our ski club. The flight after that would take off at midnight. We drew straws. Terry and I got the short straws and would have to take the later flight. No big deal. We'd have a late dinner at the airport restaurant and buy a book at the bookstore in the airport. Yes, things can get worse, and far worse before this nightmare ends. Terry and I went to our gate before the scheduled departure, only to see the monitor flash canceled in red. The blizzard that had closed Aspen had now overtaken Denver. We went to the counter to rebook and see if the airline would give us room for the night in Denver. The next flight wasn't until 11 the following day, and no, the airline would not be providing hotels because this was a weather-related cancellation beyond their control. On top of that, all the hotels were booked due to the snowstorm anyway. We were stuck in the airport for the night. We weren't alone in this. The airport was packed with people stuck for the night. Everyone was staking out benches and seats, putting their feet on their carry-ons and covering themselves with their coats. We curled up on the floor and fell asleep. After a couple of hours, I looked around, and Terry held this man's hand a short distance away. I said, "Terry, who is this?" She looked at me and said, "He has a car and can drive us to a hotel he knows." I looked at the guy, maybe 40, balding, with a pouchy stomach. His eyes darted around the airport, watching the security guard. He gave off a very creepy vibe. I grabbed Terry's arm and pulled her away, and at the same time struck him with my fist. He hissed, "I'll see you soon and get this girl." After the encounter, I questioned Terry about it. She said she was so tired and he promised a comfortable hotel bed. I'm sure if she went with him, I would have never seen her alive again. One December, my family was flying out of O'Hare International Airport to go to Disney World for Christmas. Airports may seem safe, but they're not. I'm sure I saved my sister from a chilling nightmare. Bad people are everywhere, and innocent children are often the victims. Here is my frightening story of what could have been an encounter with a child trafficking ring. We arrived at the airport early because it was Christmas and we knew it would be packed with a throng of people. Mom and Dad got into the line to check in, and it was super long. Isabel, my little sister, 8 years old at the time, and I was 12, were instructed to go to the food court and get something to eat before flying. Dad gave me some money and we would make our way through the crowd to the Burger King to get hamburgers. Our parents would meet us there. They trusted us and we had done this before. Dad said, "Keep an eye on Isabel," and that was about it. So the line was also extended at the food court, and Isabel said she wanted to wash her hands and pee. So I told her to go to the restroom and I'd place our order. By the time she was finished, I'd be at a table with our food. It took 10 minutes for the food to be served, and I was super hungry, so I sat down at one of the empty tables and began to eat, not waiting for Isabel. I had already finished my Whopper when I started to worry about where Isabel was. Even if the toilets were busy, she should have returned by now. I grabbed the bag with her cheeseburger and fries and headed to the restrooms to check on her. As I turned into the hallway off the main corridor where the restrooms were located, I saw Isabel talking to a man I had never seen before. He was bent over, listening to her, and I saw him take her hand. He was about 30 or 35, wearing a jogging suit and a baseball cap. He had a big bag over his shoulder from which I watched him take out an elf on a shelf and hand it to Isabel. He was already walking her down the hall towards an exit from the main concourse, towards parking. I ran to Isabel saying, "Our plane is boarding, come right away." I looked at the stranger and said, "Thanks for finding my sister." I turned towards the busy corridor and yelled, "Dad, I found her!" The ruse worked and the man released her and disappeared quickly out the exit. I grabbed Isabel's hand and ran to the gate where Mom and Dad were waiting for us. I didn't tell them so they wouldn't worry until we were home after our vacation.
Subscribe.